Imagine stepping into a cave that hasn't been touched for tens of thousands of years. The air is damp, the walls are scarred with mysterious markings, and the silence is so heavy it presses on your chest. Then, your flashlight flickers over something that should not exist. Something so disturbing, so unexplainable, that even scientists whisper about it in hushed tones. This isn't just history frozen in time. This is the creepiest thing ever found in a prehistoric cave. The forest was unusually silent that morning. Even the usual chatter of birds seemed to hold its breath as our small team of explorers hiked toward the limestone cliffs rumored to hide something extraordinary. The map we followed was old, almost fragile, its edges fraying and the ink faded in several places. Local villagers whispered of the cave for decades, but none dared venture deep inside. Legends spoke of strange shadows and eerie sounds, but we were scientists, trained to seek evidence, not superstition. Or so we thought. The entrance was smaller than we imagined. Jagged rocks formed a natural arch, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Moss clung stubbornly to the walls, dripping water onto the uneven stone floor. Our flashlights cut through the darkness in narrow beams, illuminating walls etched with patterns that felt too deliberate to be random. Primitive handprints, spirals, and lines formed a silent story. But of what? It was a story no one alive had read before. Each step echoed, amplifying our anxiety and excitement in equal measure. The air was cold, heavy, and smelled of earth, untouched for millennia. As we ventured deeper, the cave widened into a chamber large enough to feel like a forgotten cathedral. Stalactites hung like jagged chandeliers, and puddles reflected the beams of our lights in fractured patterns. Our hearts pounded, partly from exertion, partly from the tension of exploring the unknown. It was here, in the far corner where the walls seemed to recede into shadows, that something caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a dark object partially buried in centuries of dust and sediment. But, as we approached, a chill ran down my spine. Whatever this was, it wasn't just old, it was wrong. The object protruded slightly, its shape irregular yet strangely symmetrical. There was a texture that resembled bone, but with a smoothness that didn't belong to any natural formation. I reached out, hesitant, and the beam of my flashlight trembled across its surface, revealing intricate carvings that hinted at intelligence far older than we expected. The closer we got, the more it felt alive in some intangible way, as if the cave itself was holding its breath, waiting to see how we would react. And in that moment, I realized this discovery would change everything we thought we knew about the people who had once walked these lands. We circled the object cautiously, every step echoing off the cave walls. It was larger than we had first thought, roughly the size of a human torso, but its shape defied comparison. Was it a sculpture, a preserved animal, something else entirely? No fossil or artifact we had ever seen looked like this. Its surface was etched with patterns, some geometric, some almost pictorial, but none resembled the familiar marks of prehistoric humans. Each line seemed purposeful, deliberate, and slightly unsettling, as if whoever or whatever made it had a message for anyone who dared find it. One of the team members, Alina, shone her light closer and let out a quiet gasp. The closer we examined, the more unnerving it became. Embedded in the object were tiny fragments that looked like hair or fibers, yet they didn't match any known prehistoric species. They were stiff, brittle, and dark, catching the light in a way that made them seem almost metallic. My hands shook as I carefully brushed away the dust, revealing more carvings, some almost symbol-like, others grotesque in shape. Faces, figures, it was impossible to tell for certain. But the feeling of being watched grew stronger with each step. We were not just uncovering history. We were standing in a chamber that had been a silent witness to something far beyond ordinary understanding. As we documented every angle with cameras and notes, a strange sensation spread through the group, a mixture of awe, fear, and disbelief. This was no ordinary archeological find. Every instinct screamed that this object was ancient, yes, but also significant in a way that went beyond simple history. Shadows seemed to cling to the corners of the chamber, flickering unnaturally in our flashlight beams. The air grew heavier, almost like the cave itself had a heartbeat, slow and deliberate. We spoke in whispers, careful not to disturb whatever presence lingered here. And then, a noise, a faint, scraping sound, distant yet unmistakable, echoed through the chamber. Our eyes darted around, flashlights trembling. But there was nothing. Only the object, silent and inscrutable, daring us to uncover its secrets. It was at that moment we realized the magnitude of what we had found. This wasn't merely an artifact. It was a message from the past, encoded in forms that humans had nearly forgotten. Every detail, every shadow, every fiber seemed to scream that the cave had a story that refused to be silenced. And while our minds raced to find explanations, one thought lingered more than any other. Whatever had created this, it was not just old. It was deliberately terrifying. After the initial shock, we stepped back to absorb the scene. Cameras clicked, notebooks filled, and yet nothing could capture the oppressive feeling that weighed down the chamber. We debated what this could be. Some suggested it might be an elaborate prehistoric ritual artifact, a ceremonial object left by early humans to mark sacred events. Others argued it could be an unusual natural formation, though the carvings and embedded fibers seemed to defy any purely geological explanation. The tension in the group was palpable, each of us struggling to reconcile scientific logic with the unexplainable reality before us. Our first detailed examination involved sketching every visible carving and photographing the object from every angle. The more we looked, the stranger it seemed. The faces, or humanoid shapes, etched into its surface, appeared to shift subtly with the flicker of our lights, like shadows playing tricks on tired minds. It was impossible to ignore the feeling that we weren't just observers. We were intruders, stumbling into a space designed to unsettle those who dared enter. Even seasoned archaeologists, typically calm and methodical, exchanged uneasy glances. Every hypothesis we proposed seemed to deepen the mystery rather than clarify it. By the time we exited the cave for the first night, the object's presence lingered in our thoughts like a shadow that refused to fade. Sleep was uneasy. Dreams were filled with distorted faces, echoing footsteps, and whispered patterns we couldn't decipher. When we returned the next day with better equipment, we realized that this discovery wasn't going to fit neatly into any known category of prehistoric artifacts. Scientists outside our team would debate for months, perhaps years, and yet the visceral sense of dread would remain. This cave, its hidden chamber, and the object itself had etched an indelible mark not just on history, but on our very perception of what was possible in the ancient world. For the explorers, the cave had become more than a site of historical interest. It had become a puzzle wrapped in fear, a relic that challenged human understanding and whispered a story too chilling to ignore. Even now, when thinking back on that first encounter, the hair on my arms stands on end. The object remains, buried in sediment and shadow, waiting silently for the next eyes, bold or foolish enough to uncover its secrets. The sense of dread wasn't just about what it was, but what it implied. That the past was alive in ways we had never imagined, and that some discoveries were meant to haunt us forever. Returning to the cave with a team of specialists, our first task was to determine exactly what we were dealing with. Radiocarbon dating revealed something astonishing. The object predated anything we had encountered in the region by tens of thousands of years. It was older than any known civilization in Europe or Asia, older even than the earliest cave art we'd studied. The realization hit us like a physical blow. We weren't just looking at an ancient artifact, we were staring into a chapter of human history that had been completely erased from the record. A story lost for millennia and now resurfacing in a place that time had almost forgotten. Archaeologists and anthropologists pored over the initial sketches, photographs, and physical samples. The carvings were unlike any known symbolic language or artistic expression from prehistoric humans. Some researchers argued they resembled proto-symbols used in distant parts of the world, while others insisted they were purely decorative. But the embedded fibers, hair-like, metallic, and unnervingly preserved, didn't match anything in the known prehistoric fauna. Every test we ran deepened the mystery. Was this object human-made, animal-made, or something entirely outside conventional understanding? The scientific community buzzed with excitement, but also a growing sense of unease. Contextual research revealed more surprises. The cave itself contained layers of sediment and mineral deposits that suggested repeated use over thousands of years. Early humans had clearly visited, leaving behind tools, pigments, and rudimentary carvings. Yet, the chamber housing the object seemed untouched except for this single, anomalous piece. It was as if the cave had been selectively sealed, hiding this item from all human eyes for tens of millennia. Every scientific explanation seemed inadequate, leaving more questions than answers. And as we delved deeper, a chilling thought crept into our minds. Some aspects of the past might never be fully understood, and some mysteries, once uncovered, refused to be neatly explained. As the scientific team worked to explain the object, other interpretations began to surface. Anthropologists and historians speculated that it could have been part of a prehistoric ritual, perhaps used in ceremonies we can barely imagine. Some carvings resembled abstract figures engaged in activities that might hint at hunting, worship, or rites of passage. Others argued the object could have been a totem, a symbolic bridge between humans and the natural or spiritual world. The sense of purpose embedded in its design suggested intentionality far beyond what we would expect from the early human period. Every line seemed carefully calculated, every fiber precisely placed, creating a chilling sense that someone or something had meticulously crafted it for a reason we may never fully comprehend. Then there were the more unsettling interpretations. Folklorists and local legends suggested that caves like this were gateways to realms beyond human understanding. Stories spoke of spirits or ancient entities leaving traces in isolated chambers, testing or haunting those who dared intrude. While most of us initially dismissed such notions as superstition, the unease that gripped the team inside the cave was undeniable. Many admitted to sensing a presence, subtle but persistent, almost like the cave itself was aware of our intrusion. The atmosphere, already heavy with centuries of untouched history, seemed to react to our investigation. Shadows stretching where they shouldn't, echoes lingering longer than physics would allow. Some theorists even ventured into darker territory, suggesting the object could be evidence of an ancient cult or ritualistic practice so old and secretive that its true meaning had been lost entirely. Could it have been created as a warning, a protective measure, or even a trap. The carvings, the mysterious fibers, and the precise placement of the object all suggested intelligence and purpose. But intelligence we could not identify. Each theory carried its own weight of horror and fascination, and whether rooted in science, folklore, or fear, one thing became increasingly clear. This cave and its contents were designed to disturb, to provoke awe and terror, and to leave anyone who found it questioning everything they thought they knew about our prehistoric past. Despite months of rigorous testing and analysis, the object continued to defy explanation. Radiocarbon dating, microscopic examination, and even chemical analysis revealed anomalies that had no precedent in known archaeology. Every attempt to classify it led to more questions. The fibers remained unidentified, the carvings resisted interpretation, and even the cave's unusual preservation conditions couldn't fully account for the object's pristine, almost alive quality. Scientists began to speak in hushed tones about the find, reluctant to offer definitive answers in case the truth, whatever it was, might be more unsettling than they could imagine. Paranormal investigators and folklorists continued to visit, drawn by the legends now intertwined with the object. Some claimed to feel cold spots or sudden changes in pressure. Others reported fleeting whispers or glimpses of shapes in the shadows. Skeptics dismissed these claims, attributing them to fatigue, imagination, or the mind's natural response to fear. But even the most rational observers couldn't deny the psychological impact the cave had on anyone who entered. A subtle dread lingered, like a shadow that refused to leave, reminding everyone that some mysteries are not meant to be fully understood. What made this object so haunting wasn't just its age, form, or carvings. It was its persistence in the human imagination. Every theory, scientific, folkloric, or supernatural, pointed to the same truth. The past has corners we are not meant to illuminate, and yet the discovery challenged us, daring us to peer deeper, to question our assumptions about what prehistoric humans were capable of, and to confront the possibility that some knowledge is inherently unsettling. The cave remains sealed today, the object hidden but not forgotten, a relic that whispers from the darkness of time, reminding us that history is not just a record of the past. It is a mirror of our own curiosity, fear, and fascination with the unknown. Standing at the edge of that cave, staring at the object that had defied explanation for tens of thousands of years, it became clear that some discoveries aren't just about history, they're about perspective. They challenge what we think we know, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding and the shadows of the past that still linger. This prehistoric find isn't just a relic. It's a reminder that the world is far stranger and more mysterious than we often allow ourselves to imagine. We may never fully understand who created it, why it was made, or what messages it holds. But that's part of what makes it so compelling and so haunting. The cave and its secrets continue to stand as silent witnesses to a time long gone, daring us to uncover more while teaching us humility, curiosity, and respect for the unknown. History, after all, isn't just a collection of dates and artifacts. It's a living, breathing story that sometimes whispers in ways we cannot ignore. If this story sent chills down your spine or made you question what else might be hidden in the shadows of our world, imagine what other mysteries are waiting to be discovered. Hit that subscribe button to join us on more journeys into the past. Explore forgotten places and uncover secrets that challenge everything we think we know. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think this object really was, and would you dare step into a cave like this? The past is waiting, and sometimes it's creepier than we ever expected.